Few teachings in history have left as profound an impact as Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. In these chapters, found in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus lays out a radical vision for living, a blueprint for transforming the way we see God, ourselves, and others. This sermon isn't just about lofty ideals or spiritual concepts. It's an invitation to participate in a completely new way of life, one grounded in love, justice, and humility. But what makes this sermon so revolutionary? At its core, it's about flipping the world's values on their head. The poor, the meek, the peacemakers, those often overlooked or dismissed, are the ones Jesus calls blessed. He introduces a vision for humanity that prioritizes relationships over rules and hearts over appearances. To understand the Sermon on the Mount, we need to grasp the heart of Jesus' mission. He spent most of his time with those society disregarded, the poor, the oppressed, and the marginalized. While religious leaders of his time often gravitated toward power and prestige, Jesus focused on the people who felt unseen. He declared that God's plan to rescue the world was unfolding through him and these very people. It was about addressing the brokenness humanity had created, a world riddled with selfishness, greed, and violence. But it wasn't just a rescue from something. It was also a rescue into something, a new kind of community, where love, respect, and justice would prevail. This, Jesus taught, was the essence of the kingdom of heaven. Central to Jesus' message is the concept of righteousness. To many, righteousness might seem like a religious term tied to following rules. But for Jesus, righteousness was about relationships, doing right by God and by others. He proclaimed that those who embody this kind of righteousness are entering the kingdom of heaven. But this raises an important question: how do we know what it means to do right in every situation? As an Israelite, Jesus grew up immersed in the teachings of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, and the prophets. These scriptures were the foundation of Jewish wisdom and provided guidance on how to live in harmony with God and others. The Torah is often translated as law, but it's more accurately understood as teaching. It's a story of God's partnership with humanity, beginning with creation and continuing through the formation of the Israelite nation. This partnership was intended to reflect God's character and wisdom. When humanity strayed from this purpose, the Torah introduced laws to guide the Israelites back on track. But the story didn't end there. The prophets carried the narrative forward, addressing Israel's failures to live by God's teachings. They also offered hope, pointing to a future where God's partnership with humanity would be fully restored. By the time of Jesus, the Torah's laws were centuries old. They were given in a specific cultural and historical context, when the Israelites lived freely on their land. But in Jesus' day, the Jewish people were under Roman occupation, making it impossible to follow many of these laws as originally intended. This created a challenge: how could people continue to live by God's wisdom in a vastly different world? The answer came through the work of teachers known as scribes and Pharisees. These scholars studied the Torah and prophets deeply, discerning principles beneath the laws and applying them to new situations. For example, the Torah commanded a Sabbath rest, but it didn't specify what counted as work. The scribes and Pharisees developed guidelines to help people honor the Sabbath while navigating their everyday lives. However, their interpretations didn't always align. Different teachers had varying views, leading to debates about what it truly meant to live righteously. Jesus often engaged in these debates. Sometimes he agreed with the Pharisees, and other times he challenged their interpretations. This led some to wonder whether Jesus respected the Torah at all. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus addressed these concerns head-on. He declared, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." For Jesus, the Torah and prophets weren't just a set of rules, they were a story about God's relationship with humanity. By fulfilling the law, Jesus was bringing this story to its peak. He wasn't dismissing the teachings of the past, he was showing their ultimate purpose and calling people to embody their deeper wisdom. Jesus then made a bold statement: "Unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." This wasn't about following more rules than the religious leaders. It was about a deeper kind of righteousness, one that went beyond external actions and addressed the heart. To illustrate his point, Jesus provided 6 case studies, each drawn from the Torah. In each example, he quoted a command and then expanded on its meaning, revealing its underlying wisdom. For instance, number 1. The command against murder wasn't just about avoiding physical violence. Jesus taught that harboring anger or contempt toward someone was equally destructive to relationships. Number 2. The command against adultery wasn't only about actions but also about the thoughts and intentions of the heart. In each case, Jesus emphasized that true righteousness begins internally, with our attitudes and desires, before it manifests outwardly in our actions. The Sermon on the Mount isn't just a guide for individual behavior. It's a vision for a transformed community, one where people treat each other with dignity, compassion, and respect. Jesus called his followers to be salt and light, to preserve what is good and illuminate the way for others. He challenged them to love their enemies, forgive those who wronged them, and pursue peace in every relationship. This vision is as radical today as it was 2,000 years ago. In a world often divided by hostility and self-interest, the Sermon on the Mount invites us to imagine a better way, a community defined by love and justice. Why does the Sermon on the Mount still resonate in the modern world? First, it addresses universal human struggles, anger, lust, pride, and anxiety, and offers practical guidance for overcoming them. Second, it challenges societal norms that prioritize power, wealth, and status. Jesus' message reminds us that true greatness lies in humility, service, and love. Finally, it offers hope. In a world filled with conflict and brokenness, the Sermon on the Mount points to a kingdom where peace and righteousness reign, a vision we can begin to live out here and now. The Sermon on the Mount isn't just a historical artifact or a set of ideals to admire from a distance. It's a call to challenge ourselves to live differently, to align our lives with God's wisdom, and to build communities where love and justice thrive. As we continue this series, we'll explore the specific teachings of the sermon in greater depth, examining how they apply to our most challenging relationships and daily decisions. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights into the timeless wisdom of Jesus' teachings.